So I've been dreaming of a quiet fishing trip for weeks. Renovations at home were driving me nuts. My wife was walking around with a laser pointer telling me where she wanted the Zen-scented candle shelf, and I hit my limit. I called my cousin Tony. Tony's the kind of guy who doesn't believe in taxes, owns 3 jet skis, but no driver's license, and swears by WD-40 as a seasoning. He said, grab worms, sandwiches, and some Uncle Juice. I got the boat and a plan. We launched at 4:30 a.m. It was still so dark the sky hadn't decided what color to be yet. The lake was covered in fog, so thick we looked like 2 meatballs in clam chowder. Tony, there's a magic spot here. Fish basically volunteer for your pan. 5 minutes after casting, I get a massive bite. My brain does a dopamine backflip. Tony yells, reel it in, bro. That's a keeper. I reel with all my soul. Visions of Instagram glory dance in my head. And then it surfaces a bicycle, a rusted-out pink children's bike, complete with appealing Hello Kitty sticker and one training wheel still hanging on for dear life. Tony nearly falls into the lake from laughing. I sit there, wet, betrayed, holding what might be a cursed relic from a drowned suburban childhood. Undeterred, we head to what Tony calls the sacred spot. He starts chucking some kind of sketchy-looking bait mix into the water. Says it's his secret formula, prison-taught, family-approved. 10 minutes later, a flock of ducks arrives and starts devouring it like we dumped a kilo of bird cocaine. Tony tries to scare them off with a paddle. One duck, clearly their mob boss, hops onto the boat and stares him down. Then it spits directly into his sunglasses. Tony swears that's the same duck that stole his sandwich last summer. I think he's serious. The boat rocks. I grab for the water bottle. Surprise. It's homemade moonshine. I've got one foot on reality, the other on a slippery patch of duck poop, and my soul is already half floating away. But that wasn't the worst part. Oh no, that was just the foreplay. So after the Duck Mafia incident, Tony, with spit-streaked shades and a bruised ego, declared we were switching strategies. His strategy, aggressive fishing. His method, something he called the Krakatoa technique, which apparently involves slapping the surface of the water while screaming motivational phrases. Tony yells, "Wake up, fish! This is your moment." I sat there, holding my rod, reconsidering every decision that led me to this foggy swamp with a man who once tried to grill a tuna can. Then, plot twist. Tony gets a bite. A real one. His rod bends like a wet noodle in a hurricane. He starts reeling like he's wrestling the Loch Ness Monster. It's a monster carp, I swear on my tax evasion. We both lean over as he brings it up, and it's a shoe. A boot, actually. But here's the kicker. There's still a sock in it. Tony goes dead quiet, stares into the boot like it's offering him life advice, then mutters, "I think I knew the guy who wore this." I don't ask. It's around then I realize we've drifted far off, like lost civilization levels of far. No signal, no landmarks, just reeds, fog, and Tony's increasingly unstable fishing philosophy. We try to motor back. Spoiler, engine's dead. Tony didn't charge the battery. He thought if you let it rest spiritually, it would recharge. Cool. Great. Love that for us. We start paddling manually. Tony rows in circles. I try to navigate using moss patterns on the trees. Don't ask. 2 hours later, we beach ourselves onto what we think is a familiar shore. Turns out it's a goat farm. The goats were not happy. Long story short, when the goats bit Tony's cargo shorts clean off, we got yelled at by a very angry woman named Brenda, who may or may not be Tony's ex, and I ended up paying $40 for a cab ride back, soaking wet, holding a haunted bicycle and smelling like duck cocaine. And no, we didn't catch a single fish. But now every time I see Tony, he starts twitching when a duck quacks. So maybe I got something out of it after all. I wouldn't call myself an avid fisherman. I'm more of a beer in hand, hat on head, pretending to care type. But when my wife said, "Why don't you go fishing with Dad? He's been wanting to bond," I knew I was about to enter the twilight zone of male bonding rituals. Her dad, let's call him Victor, is the kind of man who sharpens his fillet knife more than he talks to people. He wears the same camo vest whether he's fishing, fixing his car, or attending a wedding. The man once caught a catfish using half a cigarette and a piece of chewing gum just to prove a point. We set out at 4:30 a.m. The sun hadn't even considered rising. I'm still not sure if it was fog on the lake or just my soul leaving my body. Victor didn't talk much. He just handed me a tackle box, nodded, and pointed to the beginner spot, which I swear was just a soggy patch of mud swarming with mosquitoes the size of house cats. I tried to set up my rod, only to discover I'd accidentally bought a kid's Spider-Man fishing set. Victor didn't laugh, but I saw a vein in his forehead pulse with judgment. Then came the casting. I don't know how, but I managed to tangle my line around a tree, my shoe, and possibly a passing duck. Victor muttered something like he married my daughter and offered me a real rod, which felt like being handed Excalibur by a grumpy medieval knight. Things were calm for about 20 minutes. I even started to enjoy the stillness, the breeze, the illusion of competence. That's when Victor got a bite. What happened next was some kind of fishing-themed slapstick ballet. He stood up too fast, tripped on my cooler, the rod flew out his hands, and I, trying to help, grabbed the line. Somehow, it whipped around his neck. So now I'm standing on a muddy bank, holding a fishing rod that's choking my father-in-law while he gurgles, and a duck watches us in horror. To be continued. So there I was, on the edge of the lake, holding a fishing rod that had effectively turned into a strangling device. My father-in-law, Victor, flailing like an angry walrus, was turning a shade of red I previously thought only existed on warning labels. "Let go," he croaked. I panicked. Instead of dropping the rod like a normal person, I started reeling in. I don't know why. Maybe my brain thought, let's bring him in slowly, like a big, angry trout. The line tightened. Victor fell forward. I slipped backward. We both ended up in the water, which was approximately glacial. Now we're soaked. Victor's glasses are gone. He blames me to this day, and a goose from across the lake decided this was the moment to start honking like it's heckling us. I tried to apologize, but Victor's response was to stand up, arms outstretched like Moses parting the sea, and scream. I just wanted a quiet day. People fishing nearby started filming. One guy offered popcorn. A kid asked if this was a TikTok challenge. Eventually, Victor stomped out of the lake, grabbed my kid-sized Spider-Man rod, snapped it over his knee like a toothpick, and tossed it dramatically into the water. The goose applauded, or maybe just flapped. Either way, I got the message. We drove home in complete silence, dripping lake water and shame into his truck. When we walked in, my wife looked at us, raised one eyebrow, and asked, "Bonding went well?" Victor said nothing. He just walked to the fridge, opened a beer, and muttered, "He's not entirely hopeless. Just mostly." I count that as a win. Every year, my brother Kyle and I do a manly bonding retreat. His idea, not mine. Last year, we got food poisoning from feral mushroom stew during our camping trip. This year, Kyle announced we were going ice fishing. Now, I live in a place where winter feels like nature's passive-aggressive way of saying, "I hate you." So sitting on a frozen lake for hours while pretending to enjoy it didn't exactly spark joy. But Kyle promised beer, sandwiches, and the chance to reconnect with the primal male spirit. We arrived at Lake Killdeer, red flag number 1. Anything with kill in the name shouldn't involve recreational activities, with a borrowed ice auger, collapsible fishing tent, and Kyle's confidence that YouTube tutorials are basically the same as actual experience. Spoiler, they're not. First mistake, Kyle parked the truck on the ice. Said he saw people do it in a video. Second mistake, he forgot to bring chairs. We sat on 2 plastic crates we fished out of the recycling bin. Third mistake, he insisted on cutting a proper manhole and nearly amputated 2 of his fingers. We set up the tent. It immediately blew over and dragged Kyle across the lake like a sad, flapping tumbleweed. I tried to chase it, slipped, and introduce my tailbone to the concept of existential despair. Eventually, we secured the tent with duct tape and old gym weights. Hours passed. No fish, no bites, just the cold silence and the smell of Kyle's feet. He decided to air them out for better blood flow. At one point, I swear a raccoon walked by, gave us a pitying look, and moved on. Then came the highlight. Kyle announced he brought a fish-attracting speaker. It played underwater bass sounds. He dropped in the hole. The speaker shocked him. He fell into the water. I screamed. He screamed. I tried to pull him out and slipped in right after him. Now we're both partially submerged in -2 degrees Celsius water, shrieking like wet gremlins. The tent collapses onto us. The duct tape somehow wraps around my leg like an angry octopus. And that's just the beginning. So there we were, soaked, freezing, tangled in duct tape under a collapsed tent. Kyle's yelling something about frostbite and impending Nard death, which I assume meant his testicles were no longer on speaking terms with his bloodstream. I managed to crawl out of the hole like a drunk walrus, yanked Kyle out, mostly by his hair, and we both collapsed in the slush, shivering. At that moment, Kyle remembered, with the wide-eyed horror of a man realizing he left the oven on, that his phone was in his pocket. Mine was still in the truck, which, in case you forgot, was parked on the ice. I hobbled over to the truck, thinking maybe we could warm up and think this through. But of course, the driver's door was frozen shut. I pulled. I yanked. I cursed its ancestors. Finally, in an act of desperation, I kicked the door. That's when the truck started sliding. Slowly at first, like it was considering it. Then faster. It hit a patch of uneven ice, spun around like a sad pirouette, and gently, but with tragic finality, plopped through the ice about 20 feet offshore. We stood there, watching it sink, like idiots watching a metaphor for our entire lives. Moments later, a snowmobile pulled up. Park ranger. Big hat. Big mustache. Bigger judgmental energy. Y'all camping or filming a sequel to Dumb and Dumber? We tried to explain. He just pointed to a sign that was directly behind our tent. We never looked. No fishing. Thin ice. Fines up to $5,000. Long story short, we were escorted back to the ranger station, wrapped in emergency blankets like baked potatoes. Kyle was cited for illegal parking on ice, unauthorized use of electronic fish luring devices, apparently that's a thing, and something called reckless wetness. Me, I got a fine for public endangerment because I attempted rescue without safety equipment, which I feel like should count as heroism, but whatever. The worst part? Kyle's speaker worked. When a ranger went back to get the tent, he found 3 fat perch flopping around the hole. We didn't get the fish. We didn't get the truck. Kyle now owns exactly 1 sock. But we did, apparently, reconnect with the primal male spirit. Next year, I'm suggesting laser tag.